Today, we're stepping back into the ancient world to explore a truly colossal military tactic, the use of war elephants. Imagine a battlefield filled with foot soldiers and chariots, all overshadowed by massive armored elephants charging headlong into enemy lines. For soldiers on the receiving end, it must have been as terrifying as facing modern-day tanks. These massive animals were not only a symbol of raw power, but also a game-changer in the military tactics of ancient civilizations. So, how did generals make use of these enormous animals? And how did their enemies respond to this fearsome new weapon? Let's dive into the ingenious ways where elephants were used, how they were countered, and the legends that arose around them. The elephants as tanks of the ancient world. Let's start with the elephant itself, an animal weighing several tons, standing up to 13 feet tall, and capable of charging with enough force to shatter enemy lines. In many ways, elephants were the ancient world's equivalent to armored tanks, powerful and intimidating. They could trample soldiers, break ranks, and inspire fear simply by their presence on the battlefield. Ancient soldiers, most of whom had never even seen an elephant, would have been astounded and terrified as one thundered toward them, outfitted in armor. But like tanks, elephants didn't go unprotected. Generals equipped them with armor, turning them into near-invincible creatures. Iron plates, leather, and sometimes even chainmail protected these beasts from projectiles and spears. This armor was not just for defense, it added to their intimidation factor, making them appear like invulnerable monsters. Hannibal and his elephants, one of the most famous generals to use war elephants, was Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian mastermind behind some of Rome's most humiliating defeats. Before his legendary victory at the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal famously led his army and a small number of elephants across the Alps. This journey was no small feat. The alpine terrain was treacherous, filled with harsh conditions, steep slopes, and freezing temperatures. Many of the elephants didn't survive the journey, but the few that did made a powerful impact when they reached the Italian peninsula. Hannibal deployed these elephants strategically during the early stages of the Second Punic War, using them as both psychological and physical weapons. The Romans, unprepared for such tactics, struggled to counter them initially. Hannibal's elephants became part of his legendary reputation, cementing his status as a genius of ancient warfare. Countering the beast's Roman tactics, while elephants brought advantages, they weren't invincible. The Romans, innovative and adaptable as always, developed several countermeasures. One of the most unusual tactics reportedly involved pigs. Yes, pigs. Pliny the Elder, the famed Roman naturalist, noted that elephants could be scared by the squeal of a pig. According to him, elephants were terrified by these high-pitched sounds. As strange as it sounds, the Romans would release squealing pigs onto the battlefield, hoping to create chaos among the elephants. While Pliny's account is intriguing, we should approach it with a touch of skepticism. Pliny's writings are known to mix fact with myth. After all, he also wrote about a group of mythical people with only one foot, the Sciapides, who supposedly used this foot as a sunshade. The Romans might not have had access to modern science, but they knew that sometimes creating fear was as powerful as any weapon. The legends and reality of elephant warfare. Now, let's take a moment to look at some of the myths surrounding war elephants, especially the famous idea that elephants are terrified of mice. This belief may have its origins in the ancient world, where people imagined that a tiny creature like a mouse could scare such a giant beast. While this makes for a fun story, there's little to no evidence to support it. In reality, elephants are more likely startled by sudden movements and loud noises than by small creatures like mice. In the medieval period, stories of terrifying beasts continued, often inspired by earlier accounts. Elephants, in these legends, became symbolic of the exotic and powerful. They appeared in tapestries, manuscripts, and paintings as symbols of nobility and war. Their association with ancient legends persisted into the Middle Ages and beyond, as tales of exotic creatures and incredible battles became part of popular folklore. War elephants and battle war elephants continue to be used by various civilizations. The Seleucid Empire, for instance, employed elephants extensively, especially in battles against the Romans and Greeks. In the Battle of Ipsus in 301 BC, elephants played a pivotal role as Seleucus, one of Alexander the Great's former generals, used them to create a wall of force that helped. Alexander himself encountered war elephants in his campaigns against King Porus in India. The Battle of the Hydaspes was a clash not only of armies but also of cultures and military tactics. Alexander's troops, unaccustomed to fighting elephants, struggled initially, but his adaptable strategies eventually won the day. However, as the years went on, the effectiveness of war elephants began to decline. By the time of the Roman Empire, armies had developed more effective strategies to neutralize them. Projectiles, skirmisher tactics, and traps all made elephants more vulnerable, and they slowly disappeared from the battlefield. Legacy of elephants in military tactics. So, what is the legacy of the war elephant? In the ancient world, elephants symbolized power, prestige, and fear. They were a powerful psychological weapon and left a lasting impact on the soldiers who faced them. Although they faded from military use, they continued to symbolize the awe and terror of battle, remaining etched in the collective memory of history. As time went on, elephants became figures of fascination, curiosity, and respect. They appeared in art, literature, and folklore as emblems of nobility and might. And in the modern world, while tanks may have replaced them on the battlefield, the legacy of the war elephant lives on. They remind us of a time when military innovation meant harnessing the natural world in ways both creative and terrifying. And that's it for today's deep dive into one of history's most ingenious military tactics. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update from WhoTheHistory. Let us know in the comments if there's another fascinating historical tactic you'd like us to explore.